From the straightening of America's gayborhoods to Cosmo's 28 mind-blowing lesbian sex positions. Yep, this is Queer View, where we take a look at some of the biggest LGBT stories of the week. First up, we head to America's gayborhoods. Chelsea in New York, West Hollywood in LA, the Castro in San Francisco. These historically gay neighborhoods are becoming less queer. The findings show that over the past 10 years, the number of gay men living in gay enclaves has dropped by 8%, while the number of lesbians has dropped 13%. Joining us now to discuss, we have Christopher Nutter, a resident of Chelsea, New York, and on the phone is the author of the study and an associate professor of sociology at the University of British Columbia. Chris, you recently wrote a blog for HuffPost, right, bemoaning the increasingly or decreasingly gay lifestyle in Chelsea. What's going on? Is it noticeable?
Yeah, it's not gay anymore. It's not gay anymore. And I mean, it turned in 2009 when the High Line opened. That's when it turned.
So for people who aren't in New York City, the mayor introduced this park, which is basically a reconstructed elevated railway that has turned into a pretty park. You think that's contributed to the de-gayification of the city's traditionally gay neighborhood?
It's the cause of the de-gayification.
Really?
Definitely, yeah, because the first thing that happened is the neighborhood was flooded with tourists. So, which we were told it was going to be a local park, and that was not the plan. So it was flooded with tourists from Middle America, straight, and those people didn't shop at the local businesses, which were all very much catered to the neighborhood and to gay people. And once the streets became flooded with straight tourists from Nebraska and Oslo, the gays evacuated. And so, I mean, I've lived on 21st Street for 18 years, so I saw it happen out of my window.
21st and what?
Between 8th and 9th.
Okay.
Right on the way, which is now High Line Boulevard.
Yep, you got it. Don't you think that maybe the demographic shift predated the High Line, that this is evidence of gay, I suppose, ghettos, for want of a better word, dissolving and it becoming, and gay people increasingly insinuating themselves into broader communities, not feeling the need to associate with one another quite so defiantly?
I'm absolutely certain that it happened in that context, and who can say what would have happened if the High Line hadn't entered the picture. But once any neighborhood gets turned into a tourist trap, whatever was there is going to leave. And so, you know, you don't see gay men in the neighborhood anymore. You don't see gay women in the neighborhood. And you know, I'm not a researcher, but I can definitely tell you anecdotally that 99% of the local businesses have vanished.
Amin Ghaziani, you wrote this study. What exactly were the findings?
Good afternoon. Well, the findings certainly confirm what Christopher just said, and that gay neighborhoods, including Chelsea and others that you mentioned earlier, are in fact deconcentrating, to borrow a word that demographers tend to use. When we compare the 2000 and 2010 U.S. censuses, we see that, on average, both male and female same-sex households are now less segregated from heterosexual households. In fact, same-sex couples now reside in 93% of all counties in the United States. So yes, existing gay districts are, in fact, de-gaying or straightening, if you will.
Is this true all over the United States, including in places that are perhaps a little bit less welcoming to gays? I wonder whether or not still in parts of the country, thinking of conservative southern states, for example, there's still a need to have areas where gays feel that they're normal, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be clear, just because these existing districts, and the most visible ones at that, places like Chelsea or the Castro, are de-gaying, is not to say that they are disappearing or that they no longer exist, any more as it is to say that individuals who are living in an area that is perhaps less welcoming, in a smaller town, for instance, are not going to find themselves clustering together.
And how does one characterize a gayborhood? We talk about it slightly facetiously, but is it purely the number of people who demographically on some kind of a census check a box that says their sexuality, or are there certain other characteristics that pertain to it?
I think there are four principal characteristics for a gay neighborhood or a gayborhood in a playful shorthand. The first of these is that these urban districts have a distinct geographic focal point. In other words, people can point it out on a map, usually by singling out one or two specific streets. They have a unique culture. LGBTQ individuals set the tone of the neighborhood, if you will. They are responsible for the complexion, character of the area. This is why you will generally see rainbow flags on the streets or in the storefronts of businesses, and also why pride parades oftentimes move through these districts. They certainly do have a concentration of residences. Everyone who lives in a neighborhood is obviously not self-identifying as gay or lesbian, but there is a statistically sizable population that does, in fact, live there. And finally, these areas have a cluster of commercial spaces and nonprofit community organizations.
Chris, do you think that, for a start, what is it exactly about the character of Chelsea before the High Line, when it was more clearly a gay enclave, that appealed to you?
Well, it was like gay Oz when I moved, because that's what it was. I moved to New York in 95, and I wound up moving onto 21st Street with Splash's house DJ, Max Rodriguez.
Splash is probably the biggest, most iconic gay club, I guess.
Yes, I was also a bartender there, and I also wrote for HX magazine, and I wrote about Chelsea for HX and also the New York Times and the Village Voice, but what it was gay territory. And so, you know, coming from Middle America like I did, it was an exceptional experience to see gays rule the roost. And the other thing that's easy to forget is that lots of straight people lived in Chelsea and the Village, but they were cool straight people. They were advanced straight people, and they were advanced neighborhoods that uplifted gay people, they were empowering to gays. Were also empowering to women, because misogyny and homophobia are related. You know, it was extremely diverse racially and sexually. So now it is completely homogeneous. It is completely, you can't tell these straight people apart. And I love straight people. I was raised by straight people, you know? I come from a straight heritage. And I used to write about how gay culture was influencing straight people for the Village Voice. But what you have now are straight people who wanted a gay neighborhood, but they didn't want the gays. And what I've learned from living around them, and it is disturbing living around them, is that for them it's a status issue. There's a status to living in a gay neighborhood. Not understanding that gay people and straight people who lived in Chelsea and the Village, it wasn't a status issue. We lived there because it was wonderful.
When you say it's homogenous now,
Yeah.
rather than being diverse, wasn't that part of the critique of the original gay enclaves, that they were essentially homogenous? They were homogenous in a cliquish way, in a divergent way.
Yeah.
But isn't it better to have an environment which is, maybe it's too homogenous now, but maybe an environment in which there are gays and straights and blacks and Asians and, you know, I don't know, all kinds of different people living together is preferable to one in which you have to kind of batten down the hatches and have a besieged community with holding its own against the rest of the city?
Well, I would tell you that, first of all, there was nothing besieged about Chelsea. Chelsea was a place that anybody who was open and cool and free and artistic was welcome. It was extremely popular. As I said, there were lots of straight people. Now it looks like Middle America. Chelsea and the Village absolutely look like Middle America. And once Chelsea and the Village look like everywhere else, there's nothing exceptional about it anymore.
Got to go to Park Slope. Just moving out.
Well, I don't really. I'm a Manhattanite. What can I tell you? I don't belong in another borough.
Chris, great to talk to you. I totally appreciate your points. I mean, thanks for being with us. A very interesting study.
Thank you for having us.